Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from Jon and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Welcome, everybody, to Rewind-A-Dynamite. I'm John Pollock, along with Wai Ting. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John, what's up?
Not a whole lot. I'll tell you what's up. Gina Carano's film career.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be starting off the top discussing The Mandalorian, which I didn't think we would be doing tonight, but we will be because Gina Carano has been fired by Lucasfilm over these just disgusting comments. Are you up on this story as it was breaking tonight?
I didn't even hear that she was fired, but I definitely saw the comments.
Yes. So for those that are not up to speed, tonight Lucasfilm announced that Gina Carano is not currently employed by the outfit. They issued a statement on Wednesday after several social media posts. The statement said she is not employed by Lucasfilm and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable. This is from Variety. Carano shared several offensive posts on her Instagram stories on Tuesday night, including one that likened contemporary political differences to the treatment of Jews in Nazi Germany. I'm not going to read what was posted here, but suffice to say, these were pretty disgusting comments that she made. And then a hashtag of Fire Gina Carano was all over Twitter on Wednesday. In response, people were tagging Lucasfilm, and that is the latest. It looks like she is done with The Mandalorian, and I don't think anyone will be looking to hire Gina Carano anytime soon. The strange part of this is that her career as a public figure largely launched on this very day in 2007. This was the fight with Julie Kedzie that was the highlight of that very first Elite XC show on Showtime. And, 14 years later, quite a different outcome. I don't think we have to share our thoughts on this way. Obviously, these are horrible comments. And what beyond that, I mean, it's just such a lack of awareness that it's awful enough if you are making such comparisons. You should never, ever, ever, ever compare anything to the Holocaust. That is probably a good rule to live your life by. And posting it online as such a public figure, I don't know what was going through her mind. And it's really shocking to me, Wai, because Carano has made, I don't follow her very closely, but this was a woman that I interacted with, interviewed many times in my life. So did you, and was the furthest thing from imagining she would have an outcome like this, because she was a very shy and very laid-back individual, and I don't know what has changed with that, but these were very disgusting comments to be reading over the past day.
Yeah, for me, I've been aware of, I think, her stance on COVID and maybe several other things for weeks now. So I feel like this sentiment has definitely been brewing, and in some ways this felt like sort of a logical conclusion. I guess this was definitely another level. And I totally agree with you. Like in any prior interaction I've had with her, she's been incredibly pleasant. I don't know what's been different now, but she definitely feels very different. And at the same time, at I would say the peak maybe of her popularity in the mainstream as well.
I would say without question. I mean, this was the biggest role of her life, and it seemed like this was only going to be the kickoff for more. Like, it seemed like you tell me, it seemed like she was very popular as this character. I mean, if you watch the series, she was not a bit player. She was one of the main roles in the 2 seasons.
Yeah, she was. Man, I just don't know what to say. It's a really tragic I maybe change of opinion. Like it's just sad that I think she has these beliefs. That anybody would have these beliefs. Anyway,
So, yeah, that was the major story coming out on Wednesday night. I guess we should just go through a couple of the news items here, and then we'll mention what is coming up over the next few days on the site. Not too much news to get to here, but the Raw number on Monday, what a segue. We had the lowest numbers of the year, but Raw still finished on top of the cable charts on Monday. They did 1,715,000 viewers, a 0.49 in the demo. So they were down over 15% among adults 18 to 49. And they saw a lot of declines from the week prior, with the exception of one. Like with all these drops, men 12 to 34, they were down from last week. They were actually down 16%. But during the show, they grew 22% from hour 1 to hour 3. Everything else did pretty bad, either bad or very, very bad from the first hour to the third. So something with men 12 to 34 clicked. Maybe they just thought, you know what? Randy Orton with his full use of his face going against Drew McIntyre. I'm set for Monday night. Let's tune in.
It's got to be it.
That was the outlier group.
It's got to be it. What else could it be?
Well, whatever worked for that particular group did not work for anyone else. Women 18 to 49, they were down 19.5% this week from hour 1 to hour 3. That group dropped 39%. 39. Like, wow. I track this stuff every week. That is a staggering number to lose. That's just an amazing stat. Like 40% of women 18 to 49 by the end of the show were like, sorry, let's go see what else is on. But that said, again, despite all of these declines, they're still finishing on top of cable. I mean, part of that is a function of the competition that they are up against, but it was a show that was not well received, but one that by those metrics, it's still Raw topping your cable charts. So take that with whatever grain of salt you want. Moving on to Impact news, they have announced a new pre-show. AXS TV is going to have a 1-hour pre-show to Impact. I know that this is going to be the completion to your viewing schedule every week that you had always been telling me. I just wish there was a pre-show before Impact every week. So now you can have 3 hours of Impact programming beginning next Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m., as they will be doing a preview show. This is going to be hosted by John Burton with Gia Miller and Josh Matthews, and will feature one exclusive match each week. So I guess when you own your network, you can do stuff like this. Like, hey, let's add another program to the mix.
It's another hour of content. I mean, I don't know what it's replacing, but I'm sure there's a good chance this would do better. So, yeah. And
Impact did do 153,000 viewers on Tuesday. They've got their No Surrender event coming up on Saturday night. And the last bit of news, just to talk about, as we were mentioning, Showtime, interestingly enough, getting back into MMA this week. They announced that Bellator is coming to Showtime beginning in April. They're going to be running Friday night cards with Bellator. For Bellator, if you have not been following them, they were on the Paramount Network and then shifted over to the CBS Sports Network, which to me was a step down, and we were no longer seeing any ratings data for Bellator, but it seemed like they had been at their lowest profile in a long time being on CBS Sports Network. It ends up that it was going to be a short stay. Now they moved to Showtime, which I think is a significant upgrade. It's a network, a premium network that has a history of promoting combat sports. You have the synergy with Showtime Championship Boxing, and I think puts a bit of a spotlight now on Bellator. What's interesting is that they do not have a Canadian broadcaster as of yet. Scott Coker has said that they are in talks with Canadian broadcasters and are hoping to have an announcement before these April shows. So they're not going to be running anything this month or next. So they won't start their year until April. And that's going to feature the continuation of their Featherweight World Grand Prix, and then the launch of a Light Heavyweight Grand Prix. It'll be an 8-man tournament that's going to start in April and continue in July and October. And they did a big announcement reveal on Tuesday in Uncasville, Connecticut, hosted by Mauro Ranallo, and it was quite the parade of stars that they had here in the fight sphere. So Bellator to Showtime, I think overall a very good deal for Bellator to be on a more consistently viewed network in Showtime when it comes to combat sports fans. And with Showtime, this would represent their return to MMA for the first time since 2013 when Strikeforce dissolved. So interesting to see Showtime reinvest in mixed martial arts as well. So those are just some quick news items going on. But we have many programs to come. Did you get to see New Beginning yet? Which
yes,
we'll be talking about Thursday.
Yeah, saw it this morning.
I think that the tag match just ended, actually, just 5 minutes ago after it started this morning.
Oh, the GOD tag match.
Yes, it was a lengthy one. We'll be talking about all of that on Thursday. We'll talk about both shows. The second one is actually starting in just a few hours.
1 a.m. our time.
What do you think for Kota Ibushi and Sonata? I think after today's show, we have realized that keeping matches to a reasonable length is not a concern. So if you thought that these guys could tease going 55 or 60, I think a very real possibility now after seeing today's show.
Yeah. I feel like it'll probably hit the 30-minute range, at least.
That will be Thursday. We'll go through all of our thoughts there. And then a new British Wrestling Experience will be dropping. Will Cooling will be stopping by with Martin and Benno. And then Friday, you will be back for Rewind to SmackDown.
Yes, I will be. I'll be joined by Nate Milton for the show. So it's your chance, everybody, to talk to Nate Milton. If you're a member of the Post Wrestling Cafe, you'll have access to that show. As John mentioned, the New Beginning show that will be dropping tomorrow as a bonus for Cafe patrons. Also, Ask Away that we just released on Tuesday, over 100 minutes of answering your questions about really everything and anything, not just in wrestling, but in our lives as well. So get all that right now on the feed. And of course, this weekend, we are back with Rewind-A Vision on the Cafe feed. But outside of the Cafe feed, there's plenty this weekend as well, because we'll have an edition of Post Pro Res with John Pollock and WH Park. WH Park will also be bringing us an exclusive interview with Matt Charlton. You guys might know him as Shining Wizard Designs. Just a brilliant artist who does a number of wonderful illustrations of Japanese wrestling figures that are out there. So he's got a new book out there, and WH has an exclusive chat with him. That'll also be released on Saturday. And then on Sunday, it is NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day. So we invite you to join our friends at Up Next, who you could probably listen to right now in their feed as they review tonight's NXT. But on Sunday, they will be back for the NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day post show. And if you go to twitch.tv/UpNextPodcast, you can watch that show live with our friends, Davey and Braden, and really everybody else that's in there. So all that, and the main event, perhaps the highlight of this week, Post Wrestling Game Night on the Discord, postwrestling.com/Discord. Davey Portman will be co-hosting this with Phil Chertok, the Lord of the Court himself. You don't need any sort of system. You don't really need any sort of admission. All you really need is a membership and free sign up at postwrestling.com/Discord. And then from there, as long as you have a web browser, you'll be able to play these games along with everybody in the community. So it's a great place to, bond if you have nothing else going on that evening. It's a way to interact with other listeners. I might even drop by. Davey Portman will be hosting it. Eric Marcotte, Jordan Goodman will be there. So who knows who else? Maybe John Pollock.
Oh, we will see about that. I might be completely unconscious by 7:00 tomorrow night. We'll see. But yes, I understand there will be some giveaways as well going on during game night. So go check that out. And of course, Phil will be with me Saturday night right after the UFC 258 card. We'll be live on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel. Give that a subscribe and tune into the show Saturday night. So lots of terrific things coming up at postwrestling.com.
Awesome.
You know what else is terrific, Way?
What's that?
The lead-in that Canadians get for AEW Dynamite.
Oh, yeah. I caught a bit of this.
We talked about this a long time ago, but tonight I actually found usually I am racing to start Dynamite, and I'm usually late starting it. Well, tonight I was there at 7:55, so I got to catch the tail end of Canadian Steel Timber Sports. And what I'm missing, I am reminded of just in these last 5 minutes. It is COVID time, so that means that we were only chatting to the timberers by Zoom for some extensive discussions with the host reporting live from the Canadian Steel Timber Sports headquarters. And we ended off with a roundtable discussion about your favorite steel timber sport discipline. Do you have a favorite?
I think it's a saw desk.
The stock saw way is
Stock
what you
saw,
were
yes.
thinking of.
Yes.
Nathan Cumberland explained that there's nothing quite like the adrenaline rush of running that 661. There's so much power in those 90cc saws and the risk factor. I wanted him to delve into the risk factor. Tell us a little bit more about the dangers of running that 661. And then he just got excited talking about only 4 inches of wood, and it requires a lot of skill. This is the best programming.
Well, my favorite was from BC, Sterling Hart. And if that's not a timber's name, I don't know what is. Sterling
I tried
Hart.
to make out what Sterling Hart was saying. His connection was not the greatest. I only heard from Nathan Cumberland, but yes, Sterling Hart.
I don't think we should judge John because
I'm not judging. I'm genuinely captivated by this. I'm the casual that they're trying to grab.
Certainly, we host a project and a podcast that is, if anything, even more ridiculous than the idea of people cutting wood, for competition. Imagine if one of those guys listened to one of our Raw reviews. We're talking about fire and people burning and magic and all that shit. Really, anybody listening to this podcast can't judge.
Well, I will keep up every now and then on the Canadian Steel Timber Sports.
Steven in the chat room says Sterling Hart is actually related to the Hart family. Apparently,
is he really?
That's what he claims. Not going to fact check.
There's our connective tissue.
Amazing.
We'll put that one in back. We'll put that one in the back of our future guest idea list. So Dynamite kicked off with Darby Allin and Joey Janela for the TNT Championship. I thought that they laid this match out in a very smart way. It started with wrestling holds, and Darby's going for a hammerlock and just rolls with it. Eventually, he gets hit with a gourd buster onto the apron as his face just smashes on it, and Janela hits a tope suicida to the floor. Allin would work on Janela's arm after weakening it, snapping it on the top rope to set up for the Fujiwara later on. And then Allin hit his own tope suicida that looked ungodly as he just crashed. The announcers are bringing up the fact that Team Taz did say that they would be watching this match and looking at it. So you almost have the announcers calling for the run-in that was never going to happen. So a bit of misdirection here. Allin leaped off the middle rope, and as his back is going towards Janela, he's caught in midair and hit with a German suplex. They're then going with holds on one another, Magistral cradle by Allin, a snap pile driver by Janela, and then a code red is hit off the turnbuckle by Darby, coffin drop for the win in 9 minutes and 50 seconds. I thought that they did a great job here. Everyone was watching this match, waiting for these guys to die, and they did do some very risky things, but I don't think anywhere in the realm of what was expected when you heard these two were going to be having 10 minutes on TNT. I thought that they kind of just started off a totally different tone, and I think that's always smart to try and do stuff like that. And Darby, I think the silliest thing anyone could do is pigeonhole him as some one-trick pony. This guy is such a great talent, and he can flip a switch and do so many different styles, and he got to showcase some of that at the beginning.
Yeah, it was a really enjoyable match. Certainly compared to Cody, I think Darby has been a very inactive TNT champion in title defenses, but I thought the quality of this one definitely made up for some of that lost time. These two have excellent chemistry together, and I think they both came out here with something to prove. The expectation was for them to, deliver a lot of punishment to their bodies. And, this was not without risk. They did plenty of that, but it was not just a match only of that type of wrestling. I thought, used it very economically. And I'm really glad they did, because it means a whole lot more for their longevity. And they showed off a good amount of technical ability here. Everything looked very good. Everything looked very clean. So this is a really solid opening match.
Afterwards, they had the overhead shot of the two, just kind of selling the effects of the match. So I thought this was a very strong way to start the show. I enjoyed this quite a bit. They previewed the matches to come, including Kenta and his arrival last week, opening the Forbidden Door, as Excalibur stated. I'm ready to move on from the terminology of the Forbidden Door. It seems like, okay, we've got it. Feels like one of those WWE terms that we have beaten into the ground over the last many months, but especially in the last 7 days.
Well, I thought I was done with it after Friday, but then the whole Marvel WandaVision X-Men thing happened, and I got another few days out of it. So now I'm ready to retire it. Sure.
Jon Moxley did a promo calling Kenta a dork for calling him out with his stupid briefcase. The cheap talk is over, and then Jon Moxley reveals the Forbidden title. The United States title makes its Dynamite debut. He plugs the match on Strong on February 26th. Tonight, he's going to dump Kenta on his head, and it is unsanctioned tonight, and tonight is just going to be for fun. So there we have the merging of Jon Moxley of New Japan with Jon Moxley of AEW tonight.
Yeah, he did not call himself the Death Rider or anything like that, but he did promote the date of the match, did not tell us where to watch it, but nonetheless, drew attention to what exactly it is that Kenta and Moxley are fighting for. So it, we learned definitely a bit more about what the deal might seem to be between these two, and it's that obviously you promote our match on your show, we'll lend you Kenta to use for your storyline, and thus far it seems to be a very mutually beneficial agreement.
Could you see, as part of this agreement, do you think that this match tonight could pop up on New Japan World?
That's a really good question. I'd probably think not. I don't know whether or not something like this extends to rights like that. Although I think we did see clips, didn't we, on their website or on their YouTube, right? From Kenta's appearance.
I'm not sure. I didn't see those.
Yeah,
possible, yeah.
Like a singular match like this on what, World? Or
yeah, I mean, that's kind of how they've worked things out with Ring of Honor in the past and CMLL. Those seem to be more entrenched relationships, but that would be interesting to see if that is something that they are able to work out. Where, hey, you can use our guy, let us put the match up, promote Strong, or show clips of this on Strong this week.
I do feel like, at least their Twitter, New Japan's Twitter, will probably at least call attention to it like they've done last week.
In the back, Sammy Guevara has hired a camera crew, probably got a day rate on them, and brings them into the Inner Circle's locker room. He wants to speak to MJF alone. Ortiz checks with MJF, asking if he's good, and everyone leaves, including Wardlow, but the cameraman is told to stay. Guevara tells MJF, I know what you're doing. You're trying to take over the Inner Circle. MJF takes out his phone and puts it on the table. He says he thought that Guevara was just jealous, that you used to be the apple of Jericho's eye, and then I showed up, the sex gods died, and I'm the new favorite. And he thinks that Sammy, deep down, hates Jericho for having to play second fiddle, and you want to be front and center and take over the Inner Circle. So Sammy Guevara sarcastically says, you're right, I want to take over the Inner Circle. I hate Chris Jericho. And then it is revealed that MJF was recording this on the phone. So Sammy Guevara takes the phone and smashes it against the wall and then punches MJF in the stomach.
I really liked the interaction between these two. I think the acting here felt very convincing. I think they're both very good performers. But I thought there was a major logic gap in how
there was a gigantic one that we will get to. Yes. What was the plan?
And how MJF thinks that this audio recording would be of any sort of gotcha moment after they just established that they can all watch these things on TV in full video. They even acknowledge the camera is there, of course, at the start of this. So, to me, it's kind of becoming apparent that Tony Khan's mandate to always, acknowledge the camera and to make sure that they don't have the invisible camera. Sometimes I think, especially recently, it's become more of a problem than something to help me suspend my disbelief with. They have to be really careful because I usually don't even think about the camera being there, but because they make an effort to acknowledge the camera's existence every single time, I'm kind of forced to think about it. And then I think you occasionally run into weird logic gaps in how a segment like this would even make sense. How can MJF sneak record something when there's a video camera recording the whole thing that's being live broadcast to TV? So maybe they'll tell us that this was taped and that Jericho will end up not seeing it until next week or something like that. But I think you're just asking for more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, this is one where AEW is going to get called on the carpet for this kind of gap. Whereas I think if this exact same thing happened on Raw, minus the clear acknowledgement of the camera, be like, oh, this was brilliant. Because I think you're going to let that slide anywhere else but AEW, that goes to such length to explain the logic of a cameraman being there, that for an angle like this, it really did not compute. Unless you were to get really, really, I think you're really overthinking it at this point. If you were to have kept Wardlow in the room and he could have threatened the cameraman. But again, we're watching all this as it's playing. So I don't think he had much of a way out of this.
Rustin in the chat room says, would you rather they hide outside the door like in TNA? My answer is yes. I thought TNA managed to do that brilliantly. Like the idea of this documentary camera, like The Office, how it would just be hiding somewhere, shooting it like it's a documentary without the knowledge of the people that are talking, thinking that they're talking in private, being captured on video. That to me is how you can get away with something like this without having to acknowledge why the camera is there. It's a style that I wish more of these wrestling companies would employ, because I think it's cheap to produce and it's realistic.
Cody Rhodes and Lee Johnson against Peter Avalon and Cesar Bononi. The Nightmare Family comes out with Arn Anderson in tow, and we are introduced to Arn's son, Brock, in the front row. Cody comes up and shakes his hand. Jim Ross says, and I quote, "His face looks like it belongs on a can of beef stew." And then Shivani said that Brock...
He looks like he would be in the steel timber competition.
He definitely would be. And then Tony said he looks like a combination of Arn and Ole. Which I don't know if that's the highest of compliments, but nonetheless, this dude...
He does look exactly like that.
This is a big dude. I mean, he's definitely got some size to him. So there you have it. Training, and we will see what becomes of him. I hope he has inherited his dad's promo skills.
I don't even know how this guy would look in ring, but I just can't wait to see him wrestle, because he's just he's got this kind of this lumberjack's look that I find actually really unique today. He just looks like he's probably 18, yet he's probably going to look 38 for the rest of his life, just like Arn.
This match, it was all about Lee Johnson, and I thought they did such a great job with this. Bononi blasts Johnson from behind after a blind tag, and they work. Cody finally gets Bononi off his feet after several clotheslines. Johnson hit this amazing corkscrew to the floor onto Bononi, and then Bononi is yanked to the floor by Cody, and Peter Avalon's in. He misses with the martinis and is rolled up by Lee for the win, and they put such emphasis on this win. He has scored his first win in AEW. Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall come out to congratulate him. They interview him. He said how he went 0-29 last year. If you do the work, it pays off. while he thanks the Rhodes family. Man, I thought all this talk of like how difficult it is to get new people over, and you watch this and they just did such a great job with Lee Johnson. I thought that this was not a match that had a whole lot of attention coming into this week. It's not one that's going to stand out in the lineup from a week ago when they teed it up. But my God, did they do a great job with Lee Johnson. I
thought they were very effective in teaching the audience to pay attention to this new character that they're going to feature. Johnson like took full advantage and just executed some really brilliant, beautiful looking moves in this match. And they gave him the promo. The announcers put him over like this was a big deal. So I can't wait for this guy to turn on the Rhodes.
Oh, you're so pessimistic.
Oh, come on. This will never last. Like, this was just so dripping in like corniness. Oh, I owe this moment all to the Rhodes family. Like, perfectly setting up that turn.
Well, I thought they just did a great job here. It was, just to see, another like young talent that just felt like he was just, you don't want to say made after something like this, but my God, did he feel like an important factor to this entire show. And they did such a great job of making this win feel so important.
He wasn't
what could have just been a throwaway tag. This could have just been Cody gets a quick win, leads along for the ride, and it's forgotten about by the end of the night.
Yeah, he's far from made, but this was a hot start.
Yes. The Young Bucks are in the back. This was earlier in the day with Dasha, and the Good Brothers appear. They're arguing over the Battle Royal last week, and Matt calls them idiots because by us getting eliminated, we were going to pick you to face at the pay-per-view. They did mention no surrender here for Saturday. It was so quick, you would have no idea what this was if you didn't know what they were talking about. And Matt decides he wants to defend the tag titles next week. Gallows says, I smell a big number. And they say that they're going to challenge or face Santana and Ortiz. Carl thinks the demo will be great. And that's our tag title match for next week. So Santana and Ortiz get a tag title shot. Jericho and MJF get a tag title shot. Good Brothers get nothing.
Nothing yet, I guess. Yeah. I really feel like the Bucks will eventually reveal themselves to be leading the Good Brothers along this whole time. At least that's my hope. Because I think they're them kind of playing like naively forgiving the Good Brothers each week, even though they continue to screw us. It's making them look really dumb. So I have to think that they would give themselves a bit more credit and not just book themselves to look this dumb unless it was just for, a swerve later on. But whether or not the story is in great shape, I could forgive a lot if there are good matches to look forward to each week, and we definitely have one in Bucks versus Proud and Powerful.
Then Dasha and Alex Marvez were very busy on this evening. She's with Hangman Page, and he says that they are not forming a team, him and Matt Hardy. Hardy walks in, says they are special, and tonight he's rented out a bar for the two of them. The tab is on Hardy, so Page agrees to go drinking with him. He says, I got to go get my phone, and he has this awkward run-in with the Dark Order, and it was just hilarious to watch the interaction between Hangman Page and John Silver. And Page just says, I'm going to the bar with Matt, and Silver is all flustered. He says, maybe I'll catch you on the flip. Stupid. He's just great. He is tremendous.
Yeah. I guess now they're acting like ex-lovers and they don't really know what to say.
This is the wedding I want to see in AEW.
Ooh, yeah. That or Wardlow and the Dark Order.
That's true. It's involved here. This was a fun little scene that they had. Pac versus the returning Ryan Nemeth. Phoenix is out with Pac. Okay. I thought that Ryan Nemeth played the greatest punching bag for 3 minutes. This guy's role was to just literally play dead by the end of this. It's just Pac murdering Ryan Nemeth for 4 minutes. He blasts him with a boot, sends him to the floor. Nemeth did get in his drop kick and leaping DDT, but then Pac just rolls to the floor. And Nemeth then gets stomped repeatedly in the corner. His body is limp. This guy is just completely out. he is set up in the corner, hit with the black arrow, and then the brutalizer is applied, and then he won't release the hold after the bell is called, and Nemeth has this great expression on his face of just doom that has taken over his body. I thought Ryan Nemeth was just awesome. Like, he knew exactly what he was here for, and he just played like this perfect punching bag for 4 minutes. I thought like this was a surprisingly entertaining destruction.
It felt like a callback to like jobber matches that we used to always see. And it's not even often I feel like in AEW we might get one of these, but I thought it was very effective. And you're right. Like, I thought Ryan Nemeth did a great job, as many jobbers in the past on Superstars or whatever who are there to profile the actual stars have always done.
Yeah. Like, I imagine someone told him at the end, yeah, we want you to play dead. And he decided, I will play dead. I am going to yes and that shit. And he was great. We had a recap of the wedding, culminating with Cassidy and Chuck toasting to one another, with Orange asking, what did you think was going to happen? And Chuck saying, obviously, Orange was going to pop out of a cake. This was all condensed into about 90 seconds, which was the better presentation than what we got last week.
I agree.
All of that for this toast at the end.
Yeah.
And Chucky's free.
Yeah. It's I can't say it's a program I'm that excited by. You've heard most of our thoughts last week, so this is. I mean, the end of it is what is it? Orange Cassidy versus Miro, which is a match I can get behind. But you know, I would have felt excited probably for it even without this story.
Inner Circle is getting ready. Jericho's with Wardlow and Hager. Santana and Ortiz show up, explaining MJF's been hurt. And then MJF walks into the shot. He's got his ribs all taped up, blaming Sammy. Very close to the Don Callis Young Bucks angle we just saw. And then the music starts playing and they frantically have to go out for the match, where MJF all of a sudden is not 100% and Jericho doesn't know what the hell's going on.
He doesn't watch the show.
I guess not. Jericho and MJF against the Acclaimed. Max Caster came out with a rap, including the line about "Sing Me Your Sunshine" as a reference to MJF's Rosie O'Donnell appearance.
They even shot a video for themselves over the week, and just for this match. And these aren't amazing like lines or amazing videos, but I think the effort is really appreciated. The fact that they're doing so much, just even outside of what you might see on Dynamite. So this was a really different match for these two.
Yeah, it was. It focused a lot on MJF, who's like overly selling the ribs. He's just, he was punched in the stomach. So it just made it more amusing watching this guy sell like he had been just hit by a truck. They got control of Max Caster after a double flapjack. Aubrey kicks the arm free as they're using the leverage for the abdominal stretch. Bowen's got the hot tag. They got to showcase his strength. I thought he looked very good here. And then tosses MJF off his shoulders, decks Ortiz off the apron. Jericho goes for a lion salt and gets nailed with the boombox by Caster, setting up a great near fall as Bowens got on top of him and Jericho kicked out at the last possible second. Bowens then went for a Pescado and just crashed and burned on the floor. Hager shoved Caster off the top and was hit with a Judas effect. Jericho pins Max Caster.
I like the Acclaimed a lot as baby faces. I think the style of match, the gimmick, it all works better with them as baby faces. They're not always going to have like opponents the caliber of MJF and Jericho to work against, but I think, you know, at this point they're established. The gimmick is, you know, I think among AEW tag team gimmicks, this gimmick is over. So I would love to kind of continue to see them as like a, you know, more of a top build babyface team.
I just love the continued emphasis on just trying to get new acts over. It just seems like that is such a big part of their mission statement, is young talent and putting them into positions where even in defeat, they're going to showcase them. Like I thought Bowens came off great. Max Caster's already got like the entrance and such, and they had him go late into the Battle Royal. that was a consistent theme throughout this show that I thought was a big high point. Sammy comes out and confronts the Inner Circle. Jericho's asking, what's the problem? What's going on? And Guevara says that on December 9th, I said, if one more thing occurs with MJF, I'm done. So I'm done. I'm quitting the Inner Circle. And Sammy Guevara walks out, and Jericho looked like he was heartbroken.
And MJF gave a look at the camera and smiled, without the rest of the Inner Circle seeing. So, big story.
The Inner Circle better not DVR Dynamite. Like, they get like a 30% bump on those DVR numbers. I hope the Inner Circle is not. Based on tonight's earlier plan, MJF must assume that none of them go home and rewatch the show.
He must know that Sammy is the only one who actually watches this show. So he can get away with this stuff. But this was another nice touch was how like Sammy walked up the ramp and stopped short of like going back into the heel entrance and decided to turn and walk into the babyface entrance.
That's right. Yeah.
I thought that was a really nice touch. A major plot development tonight.
Very, very significant. And I am sure that given the people involved, I bet you they have mapped out all of the weeks of TV of where this is going. And I think that this is like the whole MJF involvement with the Inner Circle. I think it's likely been very, very clearly outlined. And I think it's been really captivating stuff, like with all the different personalities involved and a significant step forward in the story.
Yeah.
After the break, Alex Marvez caught up with Guevara. He says he needs to refocus and needs time away from this place. And that was the last we saw of Guevara tonight. Hardy and Paige are getting drunk at the bar. Hardy is laughing at all of Paige's stories and says that the two of us are magic. I could make you the top wrestler out there and you could be rich. And he pulls out a contract. He would only take 30% of his earnings. And Paige agrees to sign this. So Paige goes to sign. Hardy goes up to the camera and says that this is all being documented and it's binding. And Paige signs whatever this document is, hands it off to Hardy. And I think you're kind of left with the impression that Paige is going to outsmart Hardy, but that is to be determined because you were just left here with, he signed something, but what did he do? Did he really just sign over his rights? Right.
He signed it while he was drunk. And if you're Matt Hardy and if this is a story, I mean, your sense is that it won't be this easy for Matt Hardy to just acquire the rights of, Hank Page that way. So yeah, we'll see. It continues the story. And thus far, I think I still find it really entertaining, this new Matt Hardy character.
Does Amazon have this policy? If like you're just drunk shopping at like 4 a.m, that you can get a refund?
So apparently the chat room is telling us that we missed a very important part of the segment, and it's that Page threw away Matt's document and got his own. I don't know how I missed that. We both missed that.
Okay, well.
So he did outsmart him.
So he had his own document that he signed?
Yes. Switched it out.
Okay. So when he went to go get his phone, he knew that he would get propositioned for a contract. He saw Matt's plan to get him drunk.
Yeah. Maybe he just had this extra contract in his pocket the whole time.
All right.
So what do you think the new contract means?
Maybe Hardy's working for him.
He gets 30% of Matt Hardy's royalties?
Yes. Well, Matt would have to, in theory, sign this too, wouldn't he?
He did sign it.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not really into this story at all. At all with Hardy.
Yeah, well, it's... I find him entertaining. But yeah, we'll see what match do you see coming out of this? Is there Matt Hardy versus Adam Page? Is that really a match that people are clamoring to see? I'm not really sure. I'm willing to give it more of a chance.
Shivani brought out Sting, but we didn't even get a word out before we go to Taz and Cage outside in a truck, and they reveal that they have put Darby Allin in a body bag and tied it to the van. For those remembering the classic Undertaker Hulk Hogan motorcycle angle, I guess borrowing from some of those classics, and they drove off with Darby Allin in the body bag, and Sting stormed to the back. I don't know where he was storming to, but I guess he was going to catch up to them at some point.
This was pretty wild. I mean, man, you know, weeks of this now has occurred where Sting would come out, and predictably he was again interrupted, and you know, Sting really said nothing. But this week, at least we got to see something pretty physically spectacular, I thought. Like, we forget that one of the wrestlers involved in this program is a guy who is pretty much willing to do anything to his body with or without an audience. And to see a man dragged behind an SUV in a body bag was pretty crazy, and at least a memorable week in this, you know, seemingly never-ending Sting, Darby Allin, Team Taz, you know, interaction.
But then we didn't get the big Taz promo on TV this week. Instead, he saved it for Twitter when somebody tweeted, "Really, AEW? Every week it's the same thing. Can we just have Taz shut the fuck up and let us hear from Sting for a change? This shit is getting old." And Taz's response, "We just dragged a man in a body bag with a truck out of the stadium parking lot. Same thing? What the hell are you looking at?" And it's only because it was Taz that I found that greatly amusing. We almost killed a man tonight. We attempted murder on the show.
You know, there's been a lot said about like proper social media etiquette. Some people recommend maybe disengaging, getting off of social media. I also am a fan of the Taz route of just cutting promos, chastising whoever is tweeting at you. He does it really well.
It was a great response. So there you go. Darby, his match didn't drag. That was saved for his body later.
Yes.
This was the interpretation of that tag match I watched today.
Yes.
Alex Marvez is on a golf course where Kenny Omega is playing a round of golf. And he asks, "What are you doing here when you have such a big match tonight?" And in the background, you can even listen to Kenny Omega. You're just transfixed on Don Callis, who's screwing around with the ball, with the caddy, and ends up with another eagle and puts the ball into the hole.
So I know that like the joke is that like it's Callis basically making Kenny think that he got this shot like in one shot, right? But I thought the shot actually looked pretty good. Am I wrong? Like this was shot from the bunker, and he got close enough, didn't he?
I mean, like a strong putting game would have probably his next shot. He probably could have had a chance of putting it in. It didn't seem that far off.
He was like far from incompetent. I'm sure you'd do better than most people getting this out of the sand.
I was trying to like it was a static shot, and I was like, how many times did they have to do this for him to like have like a reasonably good shot before they go into the promo with Marvez? Like, if you've never played golf,
it's true. It seemed like a one take, which is what like I question whether or not Kenny's never played golf. It looked like
I don't know. Maybe he does.
Yeah,
it doesn't strike me as a golfer, but I don't know. Have you ever played golf?
Not like 18 holes. I mean, what is it? Driving range, mini golf. Mm-hmm. I can't do it.
I played in high school. I had some friends who like went through a phase of golf, so I tagged along with them once.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough. It's really hard if you've never done it before.
Oh yeah, they call it I mean, what do they call it? I don't even know what they call it. They call it golf? Yes.
Layla Hirsch versus Thunder Rosa in the women's title Eliminator tournament. Actually, we should look at the brackets because they have released them. And the way that it's going to work is that we got the first tournament match tonight on the U.S. side. All the opening round matches on the Japanese side are going to air Monday on YouTube. On AEW's YouTube. Yes.
I see. Okay.
Which I'm not surprised by. Like, like they're doing this at an empty, like at the Ice Ribbon studio. And I don't imagine them putting those matches on Dynamite as a break from Daly's Place.
Yeah. And not even on Dark. I mean, it is similar to what they did with the women's tag tournament.
Yes. Same slot.
And I'm not really surprised by it either. Maybe slightly disappointed just because I think I'm personally a lot more interested in the Japanese side and being able to see a lot of those women featured on Dynamite proper. But given
I hope they do a good job of recapping this on Dynamite. I hope it's not just all of a sudden, we don't get any kind of highlights or some profiles on some of the winners at least. I think that that was where when they did that women's tournament, it was almost like it didn't even exist on Dynamite. It was just like this whole standalone thing, and it never felt like you were watching the progression of the tournament through Dynamite, where that is like your central hub of programming.
Yeah. And again, I do understand it, especially if you're caught up in this kind of as much as they focus on sort of the minute by minute ratings thing as they are, I wouldn't expect them to air all of a sudden, footage from the Ice Ribbon Arena on TNT. But we've learned
through this pandemic, those empty arena shows that WWE did, those people are going to tune out of that stuff. The setting matters. It does matter. So I do understand that thought process, but you also hope that there is some attention to this as well, because I think there is some curiosity.
Definitely. The disappointment I think comes with the idea that you see this list of names and it's very exciting, and you think that these women are going to be a part of AEW, when really it's not like that. One of these women will really be a part of AEW. They'll make their way over here to have a match with the winner of the American side. And I would say, judging by the response online, I feel like a lot of the people are talking about Maki Ito and probably want her to be the one at the end of it all. But there are plenty of other people that I've heard a good amount of buzz for as well.
So on the Japanese side, it's Mei Saruga versus Yuka Sakazaki, Veni versus Emi Sakura, Maki Ito versus Ryo Mizunami, and Aja Kong versus Rin Katakura. On the American side, we'll get into Hirsch and Thunder Rosa. Next week is Serena Deeb and Riho, and then Ty Conti versus Nyla Rose, and Britt Baker versus Anna Jay. And there's only 3 episodes that they have to get this tournament out, because the winner will challenge Hikaru Shida at the pay-per-view. So they are going to have to go through these fairly quickly, given that they're just doing 1 U.S. match this week, and they've only announced 1 U.S. match thus far for next week.
Oh, interesting. So maybe more YouTube matches.
YouTube might be relied upon for some of these matches. Layla Hirsch and Thunder Rosa. Hirsch used a body lock to ground Thunder Rosa, and then it was the night of Tope Suicidas. Hirsch hit one and crashed into the rail. Through the commercial, Hirsch went for a moonsault, landing on the knees, then went for another moonsault and missed, and then used the armbar. Thunder Rosa slammed out and used the Thunder Driver for the victory.
I thought a pretty good, intense match. To me, Hirsch continues to impress and stand out by sheer fact that her style is so different from everybody else. I think she's already a very welcome addition to the roster, if she's not officially signed yet, which I don't think she is. Unless you've heard, different, John? Layla Hirsch?
I don't think they made an announcement. We did skip over. They did announce tonight Lee Johnson is now officially signed right after that win.
Yeah, so I want to see more of Hirsch as a part of this roster. I really think at this point she just kind of needs some personality and color to be showcased on the show. So I continue to really hope Team Taz gets its first female member.
Oh, okay, yeah. I like the match. I think that both of these women, I think, are the upper echelon of the female talent that they have. I'm a big fan of Layla Hirsch. I think she's come out in all of her matches, very solid, very different style to them, but it works, with the opponents. And I thought these two had a very good chemistry with one another. So Thunder Rosa will face either Serena Deeb or Riho, who returns next week. Her first match since, I believe it was March. She was last there in AEW.
11 months, they said.
Yeah. Tony Schiavone had a sit down with Jungle Boy, who looks into the camera. There was no cameraman that felt like a fly on the wall on this show. Is this nerve-wracking way? If suddenly all of a sudden the subject is looking straight into the camera at you and you're being spoken to?
It does kind of catch you off guard, but of course it's always nice to be acknowledged. So if you're a cameraman in AEW, I'm sure you're full of confidence and self-esteem.
Jungle Boy has never been in a fight like the one he had with Dax Harwood. I came out on top, and I came out a different man. And you tapped out in front of the entire world. We didn't want you suspended. We wanted you here to look you right in the eye. And next time, I'm going to make you my bitch.
You know, I thought, like, fine use of the word bitch. Like, I think it's definitely a crutch. And you can justify it because I think it's still, the guy is still in, like, what seems to be the beginning stages, at least of cutting promos. Definitely has room to grow, but I thought he sounded fine for an up-and-comer.
What if it was delivered slightly differently and, oh, Dad, I have never been in a fight with such a man like Dax Harwood before. But if he ever comes at me again, I will have to make him my bitch.
A rare Wednesday appearance of Dominic Mysterio.
Dominic comes out, usually Dominic's behind a paywall, but every so often he might pop out. Next week on the show, a live show next Wednesday, Young Bucks against Santana and Ortiz for the tag titles. FTR against Matt and Mike Sydal. We get both Sydal brothers.
I didn't know there was a Mike Sydal.
Yeah, Mike Sydal has had, quite a, he's been around the block. Hangman Page, Matt Hardy, and Private Party against the Hybrid 2, Serpentico, and Luther in an 8-man tag. Serena Deeb versus Riho. And Sting calls out Team Taz.
This is a running joke.
Every week, how can we get Sting onto the show in a non-physical way? This one's got to have a contract signing. Like, they just can't get around a contract signing for these guys. Like, they have... Yeah. I mean, it's not that far away to this pay-per-view. I do hope... Like, it's almost like it's more reliant on the Team Taz side than it is Sting. Because Sting has said everything he has to say. There is nothing more for him to really outline here.
He said everything he had to say the moment he said, "Hi, Tony Schiavone." That's all we wanted him to say. Like, beyond that, it's like, what have we had? We're hoodlums? Like, the man really
The only promo he's got left is the big, like, emotional one. Like, my career was over. There was a place that didn't want me anymore, but I'm coming to turn the clock back on Sunday because I'm a hoodlum, and you're going to be my bitches.
That would be great. That would be wonderful.
Main event. Falls Count Anywhere, Kenny Omega and Kenta. Kenta coming out full New Japan video. I mean, this was...
Briefcase,
everything. Against Moxley and Lance Archer. This was an insane match for about 20 minutes they had.
They brought up a really interesting point in that everybody in this match is a former U.S. champion in New Japan besides Kenta.
Oof.
Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting, yeah.
It's a reminder of how much of a bite AEW took out of that roster, I guess, when you think about it. I mean, really, it's just Archer and Omega. I guess Moxley was jumping between them both anyway, but it's a roster that I think shares a lot of identity. Well,
Kenta attacks them with the briefcase, Moxley and Archer, at the beginning. We got trash cans involved. They go into the crowd, and they're right next to Peter Avalon's couch, where Kenta delivers a GTS onto Avalon next to his couch. Archer then stops Omega on the rail and chokeslams him through the couch, getting a 2 count. Moxley and Kenta fight into the back area, into the kitchen, and they get onto these tables that Excalibur calls onto the kitchen surface. It's called a table, Excalibur. And then Kenta proceeded to hit a DDT to Moxley onto said table, and then applied the game over. Game over on a steel table.
Yeah. What's going to happen when Kenta faces Miro?
Oh, man.
How are they going to call that?
Yeah.
Which game is going to be over first?
I guess so. It'll be the battle, the showdown. Then there was a whole bucket of potatoes dumped. And yes, this opened us up for many potato jokes. Back into the ring, Moxley gets hit with a V-trigger. There's another one on the floor. It's just all over the place. Moxley is laid out on the table. This is after the V-trigger. And Kenta and Archer are on the stage. And the announcers get away from the desk because it looks like Archer is going to powerbomb Kenta through the desk. But instead, he leaps off and then sprints off the stage, landing with a double foot stomp, putting Moxley through the table. If Kenta was a regular guy, this moment, this sequence needs to be inserted into the opening every week. This was the most breathtaking spot of Kenta just leaping off. I thought this was like among Kenta's like best nights he has had in years.
I completely agree. He was fantastic here. And this spot in particular, I absolutely agree with you. To me, it was the spot of the match because of the production involved, because of the build up to it. There's a real smart sleight of hand. And, you're watching Moxley and Omega fight on the floor. Moxley sits up on this table. And then you're distracted because you see Archer and Kenta fighting over this announce table power bomb. You almost forget about Moxley being on the table. So when Kenta does not charge for Archer but charges for Moxley, it came out of nowhere and was just so well shot, so well paced, and so well set up. I love that jump.
The four of these guys and whoever was helping to lay out this match, I thought they did such a great job. Mm-hmm. Archer's in the ring with Omega, breaks the kendo stick over his knee and hits this choke slam. And this is my redundant comment. I'm reducing it to just once per show. But my God, with a crowd here, they would have gone apeshit for Lance Archer in this role. This late in the match and breaking the kendo stick and Omega's begging off. I thought Archer came off really well here.
Absolutely. The lack of crowd didn't hurt it so much for me because this was a tape show, so we had the sweetened audio. It's not the same. You're right.
No, it's not the same genuine reaction. I actually found some of the crowd, it was like a little distracting at times on this show, but it is for the better. The Good Brothers come out, and this is where we see Anderson get into the ring and turns a chokeslam into a gun stun. Jake, who, for whatever reason, now gets physically involved every match, hits a short arm clothesline to Carl Anderson. It wasn't pretty, but much like when Dean Ambrose took that DDT years ago on that old school Raw, I bet you Anderson was trying to conceal his smile of taking this clothesline from Jake as he sold this. Gallows takes out Jake, and then they tease a V-trigger to Jake with Moxley returning with a barbed wire bat to save Jake, and then Kenta lays him out with a GTS. Archer takes out both, but is hit with low blows, Magic Killer, and then a V-trigger, and it's an assisted one-winged angel as Gallows and Anderson help him up, and Omega finishes the one-winged angel, pinning Archer. Phenomenal match. Great
match on TV. This was the official first crossover match between New Japan and AEW on Dynamite, and it more than lived up to expectations. When they announced that this would be a lights out match initially, but now a Falls Count Anywhere match, I don't know if I expected much. Because
they did say it was unsanctioned tonight. That was in Moxley's promo. So it's kind of the spirit of what the lights out concept is, that it doesn't
same
count.
Thing.
Yeah.
Same type of terminology, all for the same thing. But I didn't really think about what the match would look like because I think I've been so conditioned to being disappointed by plunder matches in my lifetime. This was the best kind of plunder. It didn't just have your brawling across, the arena, but there were well-planned, wild, and well-executed spots littered throughout the entire arena. That double stomp from Kenta off the stage was just so well done. There was a lot of creativity, I thought, in the match, and it wasn't just your typical hardcore match. Beyond that, the amount of elevation that they managed to provide various participants in this match was really impressive. So coming out of this match, you have Kenta and Mox. That match is far harder now than it was before. Mox and Kenny continues to be built for their next pay-per-view. This kind of worldwide reunion of the Bullet Club across 3 promotions now continues to be teased. Here, you had New Japan, AEW, and Impact all represented here. But man, what a job they did for Lance Archer. Going from prior to this match, pretty inconsistent appearances in this Kingston feud. After this match, he looks like a main event level player in one night. You draw that association very strong between him, Mox, and Jake as a potential new team, and you lay the foundation for Archer versus Kenny in the future, or rematch with Kenta even here. I couldn't say enough good things about this match.
Look at how early we are in the year. It's February 10th, and some of the main events on Dynamite. This year we've got Omega and Phoenix, that Darby Brian Cage match. We had like that 6-man last week. We had the 8-man with the Bucks and Good Brothers together. And then this, like these Dynamite main events have been stellar so far. Mm-hmm. And I'd have to really look back. Like, yes, there have been better matches this year than this main event, but from start to finish, this might have been my favorite Dynamite of the year. I just thought this was such a great show. They got like their emphasis on youth in so many different programs is, I just think like there's such an energy to the show when you can see the not just pushing new acts, but the fact that they are clicking, they're working. Like Sammy Guevara feels like he is on the cusp of a breakout year. You have a main event like this. You have stories that seem to be clicking very well. I thought Anthony Bowens came across really well in the tag match, and Lee Johnson felt like a star tonight. This was a great 2-hour show.
It was a very good show. Yeah, no complaints about it.
Well, let's go to the feedback and see what everyone had to say. Starting off with tonight's poll.
7.79 out of 10.
All right. We start with Aaron from Brampton. I don't get why Team Taz dragging Darby around in a body bag was seen as a bad thing. Okay. Aren't we under the assumption that Darby already throws himself down hills while in a body bag? It seems like they were doing him a favor. Anyways, I thought the main event was incredible. I'm still not sold on Kenny as a top guy. Oh, really? But boy, does the man know how to wrestle. Also, this match did a solid job reestablishing Archer as the monster on the roster. Even though he took the pin, it still took 4 men to take him down. Yeah, Archer, they did a great job with. It was perhaps his best AEW performance. Like, he had the match with Moxley last year, but I would place this above it, and I think he's going to get more out of this involvement with Moxley on the babyface side coming out of this than he did for that title program.
Yeah, he works really well as a babyface. It's just such a fan-friendly style, and at this point, being in there with Kenny, I'm really looking forward to that match if they ever book it. We go to Nick, who says, tonight's Dynamite felt extremely well written. Significant movement was showcased in almost every program, from Hangman illustrating his growth by swapping out the contract to Team Taz. I don't know how we missed that. I think we were just focusing on...
We both flubbed on that.
I think we were just looking at Matt as Matt was like talking to the camera, and so we didn't see Paige do it in the background. He goes on to say, to Team Taz and Darby in the parking lot, and of course Sammy finally leaving the inner circle. This constant progression is what helps AEW stand out and feel must-watch every week. The wrestling was equally strong. A highlight reel sprint from Allin and Janela, a technical showcase from Thunder Rosa and Hirsch, and another insane main event. Seeing the AEW title, the briefcase, and the US title all in the same ring was a bit surreal, as were the mentions of Hiroshi Tanahashi and Suzuki Gun on American TV. All I'm left wondering is what Kenny's handicap is. 9 violent potatoes out of 10.
Maybe that's going to be a side video game project. Kenny Omega's PGA Tour.
Oh, that handicap. I was like, what? A golf term. Got it.
We're going to teach away golf this year. That'll be our goal. Johnny from Saskatoon writes, great show tonight. Wasn't expecting much prior to watching it, as the lineup seemed all right, with the big focus being the main event. Overall, everything was a good watch. The low point for me was Darby, Sting, and Team Taz. Again, I understand that they're building to the street fight, but it doesn't quite have me invested yet. I wonder how they're going to pull it off. I was under the assumption that Sting could not get physical. The main event definitely delivered. It reminded me of the Attitude Era Falls Count Anywhere matches. Maybe it was just a kitchen brawl that did it for me. I can only imagine what folks thought when they saw Kenta after only knowing him as Hideo Itami in WWE. That was probably the most spectacular moment of the night, was reserved for Kenta.
You know, a scene like what we had tonight would have never happened 3 years ago if the thought of Hideo Itami being in the ring with Dean Ambrose and being an equal, that was unimaginable. But tonight, like, this felt like a hotly anticipated match between these two, and they felt every bit as equals. So I'm so incredibly happy for like the amount of reinvention Kenta has given to himself, not just as a character, but in ring. So much more spectacular than he was in a WWE ring and his style. And I mean, same goes for Moxley as well. But man, what a great night for him. Let's go to Johnny from, Kate up next.
Yep.
Is that right, John? who says, I wonder if it's going to turn out that Darby is actually working with Team Taz and then getting dragged behind a truck in a body bag was actually his idea. This was a fun episode, and I like the inclusion of a few dark stars among the regular talent. I'm really happy for Lee Johnson, who's been working his ass off for over a year and has had some really impressive matches. Next, I hope that they sign Layla Hirsch full-time. Ultimately, though, tonight was all about the main event, and it delivered. It was a hard-hitting match, trimmed with some potato-y goodness. Weirdness, I mean. Although Archer was the only one involved who could afford to take the pin, he doesn't come out looking diminished. An entertaining 2 hours that was much needed after the news of the last couple of days.
I would normally say like that would be absolutely ludicrous for Darby that this was part of his plan. He's the one character you could get away with that of, oh, it was no big deal. It was just that was part of our plan. Drag me in a body bag.
To what benefit, though?
She's explaining, like, if this were a swerve where Darby ends up turning on Sting, that this was all to get a false trust from Sting to believe that Team Taz is really trying to harm Darby when, in fact, they're working to outsmart Sting and turn on him.
Yeah. If they chose to do that, yeah.
I don't think they should be turning Darby. I think they've got something very special in Darby as this very unique babyface that is unlike anyone else on their roster. And I think that I think some just immediately go to all the stunts he does, but like there's so much to that performer beyond just the crazy stunts that he can do. Like he can certainly adjust to, I think, whoever he is working with. I think he is a tremendous, tremendous talent. The last one here is from Muggin. Dynamite paid off the Sammy Guevara babyface turn expertly. He was presented so smart when MJF recorded their backstage chat. It was quite a trip seeing the United States title on TNT, and the main event Falls Count Anywhere match was chaotic fun. Kenta looked very good. Paige is AEW's version of The Bachelor, with Matt Hardy and the Dark Order wooing him for his services. The Acclaim's pre-match freestyle, including a nod to My Sunshine, was hilarious. With Leo Rush winning the AAA title on MLW, do you see him popping up on AEW for a one-off? I don't think you can say hard no to any possibilities when you're talking about these groups. But, I mean, man, I don't know if AEW needs any more championships introduced or, like, they are beyond loaded now when it comes to all of these performers and all of these titles and all of these stories that to me you would need a real compelling idea to be doing something like that. But I don't dismiss anything that if it's like AEW and MLW doing something together, like that's a phone call. Like there's not this great barrier in front of most of these companies to be doing stuff together if they're seen as a benefit to each side. And AEW has shown that they are very willing to work with others, even if it's perceived that they're helping out the other group as opposed to vice versa. Like they see a value in that.
Everything is wide open at this point. I mean, I think the toughest bridge to cross has been crossed. I guess the toughest bridge would be WWE, but that's never going to happen. But I will say, I mean, this is a roster that does continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're not cutting anybody. So adding men from other promotions might be a bit tougher to justify. If it was the women's divisions, I think that's still wide open. I think they're in dire need of established veterans, people who are already promoted as stars in other companies to come over. But on the men's side of things, maybe less likely unless you are, somebody from New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Well, there you go. I thought a really, really strong edition of Dynamite. So great show. A lot that they have to set up over the next couple of weeks going into the pay-per-view, which is March the 7th. But we will be back on Thursday. Wei and I will be doing a show for Cafe members. We're going to go through both New Beginning cards in Hiroshima. In just a couple of hours, it's Kota Ibushi defending the double championship against Sonata. And today's show had Sho challenging Hiromu Takahashi, and the matchup we will dissect and discuss. I don't even want to know Wei's opinion of it yet, where the Iron Fingers were brought back to life, and Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. challenged the Gorillas of Destiny.
Oh, you'll want to listen to this conversation, I'm sure. Everybody.
It was a new beginning on Wednesday. So that's coming up for Cafe members on Thursday. And then this seat will be occupied by Nate Milton on Friday night. For all patrons, Rewind to SmackDown going down with Wai and Nate.
Yeah, I'm excited. So join us, everybody, postwrestlingcafe.com, and we'll see you later. Post Wrestling Game Night, Discord. Join it.
7 p.m.